The bell above the diner door rang softly under the bright midday sun, but inside, something heavy hung in the air. It began with a raised hand, a cruel smirk, and a young waitress standing frozen beside a spotless white counter. Most people would remember that moment for the humiliation. Few would ever forget what came next. Before the story unfolds, if you believe in kindness, second chances, and hidden strength, please take a second to like, comment, share, and subscribe to Grandma Diery. Your support helps these emotional stories reach more hearts. Her name was Marissa Cole, and she had been working the lunch shift at Maple Street Diner for almost 6 months. It was a small, cheerful place with red vinyl stools, shining chrome edges, and the comforting smell of fresh coffee drifting through every corner. Marissa took pride in her work. She memorized regular customers' orders, wiped counters until they gleamed, and always offered a gentle smile, even on hard days. That afternoon, sunlight poured through the front windows, casting long reflections across the tiled floor. A few families sat near the booths. Construction workers crowded one end of the counter. Everything felt ordinary. Until Sheriff Grant Holloway walked in. Grant Holloway was known across town, not for kindness, but for control. His badge carried weight, and he used it thoughtlessly. He moved through places like he owned them, shoulders back, eyes sharp, expecting obedience without question. People lowered their voices when he entered a room. Some out of respect. Most out of fear. Marissa noticed him immediately. She straightened her apron and approached the counter with her usual calm. But Holloway was already irritated, tapping his fingers, scanning the room like it had personally offended him. Something small set him off. A delay in service. A coffee that cooled too quickly. No one ever really knew with men like him. What followed was slow and cruel. He criticized Marissa loudly, pointing out imaginary mistakes, waving his hand dismissively as if she were invisible. His voice carried across the diner, pulling every eye toward the counter. Marissa stood there with her head lowered, cheeks burning, hands clasped tightly in front of her. She didn't argue. She didn't defend herself. She simply absorbed it. Customers shifted uncomfortably. A few wanted to speak up, but no one did. Power has a way of silencing rooms. Holloway demanded she apologize publicly, and when she did, quietly and respectfully, he scoffed as if her humility only entertained him more. What he didn't know was that Marissa Cole wasn't just a waitress. She was Senior Officer Marissa Cole, a decorated female cop who had transferred to this town under a quiet internal investigation program. After exposing corruption in a neighboring county, she had been advised to keep a low profile while federal auditors reviewed multiple departments connected to the case. Maple Street Diner wasn't just a job. It was cover. Marissa had traded her uniform for an apron, her patrol car for a bicycle, and her badge for a name tag. She had agreed to months of silence and patience, working ordinary hours while documenting behavior, watching patterns, and quietly gathering evidence on local leadership. Grant Holloway had already been flagged. And today, he had just shown everyone exactly who he was. Marissa finished her shift in silence. She cleaned tables. She refilled napkins. She thanked customers. But inside, something had shifted. The humiliation wasn't new to her. Years in law enforcement had taught her how cruel authority could become when unchecked. What hurt was seeing how easily a room surrendered to it. Outside, police units had arrived earlier for an unrelated call. 2 officers stood near the entrance, unaware that their sheriff had just publicly belittled a woman who outranked them by years of service and multiple commendations. That evening, Marissa returned to her small apartment and opened her secure case file. She added one more entry to a growing list of documented abuse of power. Time stamps. Witness counts. Behavioral notes. The investigation accelerated after that. Within days, internal affairs arrived quietly. Financial records were pulled. Body cam archives were reviewed. Citizen complaints that had been buried suddenly resurfaced. Former deputies came forward. Business owners told stories they had been afraid to share. And then, on a clear weekday morning, unmarked vehicles lined the sheriff's office. Grant Holloway was escorted out in handcuffs. The town woke up to headlines it never expected. When the truth finally came out, it spread fast. People learned that the soft-spoken waitress from Maple Street Diner was actually a senior officer with 15 years of service, multiple bravery awards, and a reputation for integrity. They learned she had helped dismantle a network of bribery, intimidation, and misuse of authority that had gone on for years. They learned that quiet strength often hides behind simple uniforms. Marissa returned to the diner one last time, not in an apron, but in her pressed police uniform. The same customers who had watched silently now stood, some with tears in their eyes. The manager hugged her tightly. A few people apologized for not speaking up. Marissa didn't hold it against them. She understood fear. She thanked everyone for their kindness, left a generous tip for the staff, and walked back into the sunlight with her head held high. Her story became a reminder whispered through the town for months afterward. That respect should never be demanded through fear. That true authority comes from service. And that you never really know who someone is just by the role they appear to play. If this story is touching your heart right now, please take a moment to like, share, and subscribe to Grandma Diery. Your engagement helps spread messages of courage and compassion to people who need them. Marissa went on to lead a regional task force focused on accountability and ethical policing. Maple Street Diner stayed busy. And Grant Holloway became a lesson in how fast power crumbles when truth finally steps into the light. Sometimes, the strongest people are the ones who stay silent the longest. Sometimes, the person being humiliated is actually the one holding the future in their hands. And sometimes, justice arrives not with shouting, but with patience. Before we end, special request. Please comment your thoughts below and tell us what part of this story moved you the most. And if this story touched your heart even a little, please support Grandma Diery by liking, sharing, and subscribing. Your small action helps keep these meaningful stories alive. Because kindness matters. Courage matters. And every quiet soul deserves to be